be the change agent for becoming more sustainable and becoming a more sustainable industry.
What are the key industry challenges that you guys are facing and trying to solve?
So construction, like I said, is one of the lowest productivity gains across any industry. Payments. It can take, I think it's anywhere from 80 to 90 days for a subcontractor to get paid after they've completed that work.
It's actually really, each one of these is a massive, massive space, and it's also becoming more and more competitive.
It's very clear that the kids aren't going into construction for whatever reason. They can earn a ton. It's the best job I've ever had in my life, including my current one. We need to rapidly bring robotics, automation into our industry. Otherwise, the industry is going to come to a halt because we're not. You need people to build.
Welcome back to the Contech Onsite podcast. I'm super excited to host Eliot Jones. Eliot is a principal with Trimble Ventures, which is the corporate venture capital arm of Trimble. In his current role, he leads the investment strategy, creating an investment thesis that is strategically aligned with the needs of Trimble. He also manages portfolio development, facilitating commercial partnerships and collaborative efforts between the startups and Trimble. In addition, he also manages corporate partnerships for Trimble, which includes partnerships with Autodesk, ESRI, Microsoft, and many others. Eliot has been with Trimble for 10 years, and prior to this, worked in construction with QA and others. He is based in Denver, where Trimble Corp's the headquarters is located, but is originally from Ireland. Eliot, welcome to the podcast. What a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Okay, so why don't you start off with introducing yourself and telling us about Trimble Ventures and your role?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, I've been with Trimble for 10 years in a range of different capacities, mostly in product development, so product management, or different strategic functions. Again, mostly in construction, but my background is in geomatics, which is basically GPS engineering, land surveying, different types of surveying. So I've also worked within that field within Trimble, which has obviously been Trimble's kind of core focus is GPS positioning, surveying, and then we've taken a lot of that technology to other industries such as construction, agriculture, transportation, etc. So like I said, I've been with Trimble for about 9 years, and then in the last 2 years, I moved over to the venture fund. We set that up just over 2 years ago. It is a $200 million fund. It's a balance sheet fund, so we invest off the balance sheet, and we invest in the areas that are strategically aligned to Trimble. So we have 4 major industries that we serve: construction, agriculture, transportation, and geospatial. So we invest across those industries or into those industries, as well as in horizontal enabling technologies. And then, like I said, prior to that, I was in the construction industry myself.
Okay, so it's super fascinating. I'm excited to unpack all this. It's automatically comes to mind. Is there any major differences or I would say it's really interesting you guys look at these different industries. How would you say that the technology, the construction technology and size of the portfolio of what you guys invest in, how big is it in terms of the proportion of the portfolio?
Yeah, so construction is our major focus. It's the largest sector for Trimble. So we don't define a percentage in terms of how we allocate capital, but it is our primary focus, then followed by transportation, agriculture. We did just announce a major joint venture with ICO in the ag space. So we're really increasing our footprint in ag and working one of the major providers of equipment in the ag space. And we also have JVs in construction as well with Hilti, a good partner of ours, and Caterpillar. But yeah, to answer the question, we don't allocate a percentage capital in the industries we serve. We're dynamic and we invest as the opportunities arise.
Okay, super interesting. And I'm just thinking, because you guys are investing across these different industries, is there anything that stands out when you guys would say as a different focus or a more nicheative way? I'm not like a more specific way you guys assess construction tech companies versus the other industries, or is there any like cross learning from the industries? It's just interesting.
Yeah, I think most of the industries we serve are similar in a sense in that they're, heavy industries. They're typically have lower adoption of technology as well. So in terms of barriers to entry, technology adoption is a huge part of that. They typically have lower productivity gains as well. They are changing, but looking at construction, it's one of the lowest industries for productivity gains. But trying to think about specific to construction, yeah, construction, there's no other industry like it. But taking learnings into other industries, no, I don't think there's anything that jumps to mind for me right now.
Okay, cool. So I think it leads us to the next question, which is the construction technology venture space is known to be one of the most challenging. The construction technology venture space is known to be one of the most challenging. Why did Trimble enter the space, and what kind of impact is the fund looking to have?
Sure, good question. So we created the fund sort of as a recognition that there's major industries or major problems facing our industry. So we look at construction, there's fragmentation, sustainability, labor shortages. There's these big problems facing our industry. And I think it's a recognition that we as an industry and the larger players in the industry can't solve everything. I think in the past we've been quite siloed. We've had our best in class products that don't speak to one another, don't integrate. So I think in some ways it was a recognition that we can't solve everything. So we need to partner. We need to integrate with some of our potential competitors as well, Autodesk, Procores. We need to play better and we need to share data. And then looking into the startup ecosystem as well. How can we enable the next great breakout startup to be successful? Because their success is our success as well, in a sense. And especially if they're building their product, building their company, leveraging Trimble technology, integrating into our products, we're creating mutual value for each other. So I think one of the reasons we created the fund and the venture function within Trimble was to help promote, help accelerate those big innovations that will add value and help solve some of the big problems in our industry.
Super interesting. I really like the fact that you talked about the kind of the changing a bit the game, the rules, where we're seeing a lot of, I'd say, silos between companies. And over here, talking about collaborating and partnering with other competitors. I find it to be fascinating. I think, would you say in general that there's a lot more to gain from cooperating, or what? Because this is a new shift, this is a new paradigm, I'd say, in the industry. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought you might pick up on that one. Yeah, absolutely. Like construction is 14% of global GDP. It's a huge industry. It's big enough that there can be more than 4 or 5 big players out there. So there's enough of a market share for us all to be successful. And I think in the past, by not collaborating, not sharing data, we've hurt our customers, which is reflect badly on us. So speaking just for Trimble, our strategy is to enable those connections, help share data from your design platform to your construction platform to your operate platform, and across our industries as well. So that's our strategy. And we also, to be frank as well, we can do a better job of connecting our own products as well. We've been a very acquisitive company. We've acquired, I think it's something like 150 different companies, range of different sizes. And we need to do better connecting those products, those solutions within the company as well. So yeah, I think as an industry, we need to do better. We need to collaborate, and we need to help the startups as well. Help them integrate, help them build their business. And again, that's why we set up the venture fund.
I love it. I'm definitely going down that route soon to ask you more about the startups.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, it's really typically a lot of CVCs are primarily focused on trying to solve their parent companies' issues and challenges. Yep. What are the key industry challenges that you guys are facing and trying to solve?
Yeah, so within construction, we typically look at 6 major investment themes that we align our investment strategy to. So the first is reality capture. it's a huge category. There's hundreds of companies, startups in this category. Start like with the top end with Open Space, who are very successful company, to Veer Doxel. There's a bunch in this category, and in a sense, Trimble was one of the earliest companies to provide this technology. A core part of what we do is data capture, is connecting the field to the office. So we do play in this space, but we don't provide all of the functionality. But we want to expand our offerings, work with the industry leaders out there to help solve this problem, because there's a huge problem in the industry where if you just look at payments, it can take, I think it's anywhere from 80 to 90 days for a subcontractor to get paid after they've completed that work. And in a lot of cases, these are smaller companies, so the industry is in a sense built on top of debt that subcontractors are taking out. And that's why they go out of business, because they can't fund their company under those circumstances. And especially if they get unlucky and they're delayed on a lot of different payments. And when they fail, the project fails as well. How many projects can you think of where a subcontractor went out of business and then the rest just fell like a house of cards? So we need to make it easier for subcontractors to get paid. And then the way to do that is to create a reliable way to document what was captured on, or what you did on site, the work you completed, capture that data reliably, and then connect it into your payment platform as well. So you're actually proving that the work was done, and then you're escalating the payment getting to your contractors and subcontractors. Sorry, I went deep on reality capture there. So reality capture is one. Then we look at industrialization. So construction, like I said, is one of the lowest productivity gains across any industry. I think here in the US, the only industry with a lower productivity gain over the last few years is hunting. I don't know if you hunt, I don't, but I don't think there's a lot of technology in use in hunting. So it makes sense that it hasn't gained in productivity, but construction, we need to improve, we need to do better. Industrialization, robotics, autonomy is one way to do that. So that's an area that we're very focused on. Sustainability is another. It's a horizontal for us across industries, but within construction, I think it's something like 40% of CO2 and other greenhouse gas emissions come from the built environment and construction. So we need to lead by example and help, be the change agent for becoming more sustainable and becoming a more sustainable industry. Sustainability, fintech as well. I talked about payments, taking some of the learnings and the technology from the fintech space, bringing that into construction, again, helping, people get paid quicker, help improve, help automate the payment processes within construction. AI as a horizontal, everyone's talking about AI. My focus and our focus is truly look at the workflows versus just the technology and where can AI be most impactful in this industry. One area is generative design, leveraging Gen AI tools into design workflows, and then bringing that downstream from there. What else? Oh, and we do have a transportation business as well, so connecting the supply chain from transportation into construction, helping connect the data and the workflows there.
And also AI into workflows. It's actually really, each one of these is a massive space, and it's also becoming more and more competitive. I feel like you guys must be looking at a lot of new companies and a lot of new tech new tech solutions that are coming up in this space. These are all very popular areas. I think the payment is the least popular area, because a lot of people usually think the fintech solutions and the payment solutions are the most boring ones, and you have the least amount of founders who go pursuing them. But reality capture.
Your words, not mine.
What?
Your words, not mine.
Yeah. No, but it's really interesting because the whole fintech space took off much later than a lot of other enterprise solutions. And, it ends up being these really geeky guys who get banking, and they also understand you have to have a really intrinsic understanding of industry payments, and contracts to know, how to build a product for the industry. So super interesting. Now that we discussed the challenges you guys are facing and solutions you're looking for, what is the fund's investment strategy? What companies do you want to attract And what stage is of a startup or a company is most relevant for you guys?
Yeah, good question. So we're a CVC, so we're not a traditional generalist VC. We only invest in the areas that our parent company operates in, and we're in the business of strategic gains. Partnered with financial gains as well. We're not in the business of losing money, but our primary goal is those strategic value or those strategic gains. So we don't lead rounds. We only will invest alongside a proven VC, a VC that we're comfortable with. And it's smaller check sizes for us as well. Like I said, we're not only looking for a return on investment on our capital, so we don't have to go with larger checks. And we want to be an invited guest as well. That's our model. We're not aggressive in terms of the terms we'll put in around. We don't do ROFRs. We're not in the business of investing to acquire. That may happen. That we're one of the larger acquirers in the space, but we don't want to restrict the startup with terminology like that in our agreements. So smaller check sizes. We invest typically Series A onward. We did adjust our strategy last year, just given the macro environment and the valuations that were coming in from the previous rounds. We did look at seed rounds, but traditionally Series A and onward, where we can invest, let's say, 1 to 5 ballpark Series A and B, 5 to 10 C and D, but not a hard and fast rule. It's just a guideline. What else? Yeah, and like I said, our mission is to really extend the Trimble platform. So we invest in companies where we can be a value add to them, where they can leverage our technology, leverage our expertise to help accelerate their growth, accelerate their path to product market fit. And we get a value out of it as well, because we're increasing the functionality that our products, that our platform, that our solutions can offer without having to go and build everything as well. So partnering with the best-in-class solutions out there, the best-in-class startups, and then when it makes sense, investing in those as well to help them out.
Okay. So super interesting. We know that I'd say every startup tends to try to solve a problem. It all stems from a problem. What would you say is industry-wide problems that your portfolio companies are trying to solve?
Industry-wide. So you want focusing on specific examples?
Yeah, if you want to, sure. Like you
Sure.
give an example or two.
Yeah, so we talked about one of the problems that's on my mind in this industry is the labor gap. I think it's something like, maybe this is a US stat, 40% of the workforce is going to retire, is going to age out in the next 10 years. And we in Trimble, we work very closely with universities and educational institutes as well. And it's very clear that the kids aren't going into construction for whatever reason. They can earn a ton. It's the best job I've ever had in my life, including my current one. But they're not going into it. They want to do other things. So that 40% gap is not being replaced. So, when robotics came around in construction first, or in other industries, it was this is going to take people's jobs. In construction, it's not, because those jobs are disappearing. People don't want to do it anymore. So we need to rapidly bring robotics automation into our industry. Otherwise, the industry is going to come to a halt, because we're not, you need people to build. So autonomy is a big focus for us, and we've invested in a few companies in that capacity. Civ Robotics is an Israeli-based company. They're bringing autonomy into the survey workflows, and they're a great company. Oxa, formerly Oxbotica, is a UK-based company. They're building the autonomous. It's a broad horizontal tech stack, but we're leveraging them to help train our autonomy models and technology for heavy industries. So for construction, for ag, so you don't have to do thousands of hours of actual driving. You can simulate that training. So autonomy is a big one. Sustainability we talked about, fragmentation as well. We invested in the company Project Mark, who do construction focused CRM. So instead of having to leverage a Salesforce or some of the other industry providers out there for a CRM, it's a very targeted, very tailored CRM for the industry. We all know it's a very unique industry, so building products that are focused on the industry is key. The founders are two ex, AECOM employees, so they truly understand the industry. But our thesis with them was, if you can connect CRM to our ERP products, it simplifies, it allows data to flow from that bidding phase, finding the project to the project execution and bringing in data. So you're not recreating that data, you're connecting those workflows. What else? Yeah, anything you want to pick out of that?
I think it's super interesting. I think it draws a pretty clear picture of how you guys are really identifying these products that are really complementing Trimble. And I'm also seeing that there's a lot of, I love one of the things that you said is it's the best job I ever had. And I gotta poke at that a little bit. What are the kids missing out today that they don't get about the construction industry that is, makes it the best job you could ever have?
Best and worst. I'll clarify. Best in the sense that it's the most fulfilling thing you'll ever do. If you like the buildings at home, and the enjoyment you get out of that, there's nothing like working on a mega project. My last construction project before joining Trimble was one of the widest bridges in the world. It was in Vancouver, Canada. It was early in the project when I joined. I didn't get to finish the project, but I've gone back to Vancouver tens of times after that, and just the enjoyment of driving over something that I played a very small part in is one of the best feelings. So I think that sense of waking up, working hard, and seeing the fruits of your labor is great. It's one of the hardest jobs I've ever had, because when you're outside all day in the middle of winter in Canada, it's freezing, and you're regretting all of your life decisions that got you to that point. But then you have that enjoyment at the end of it, and it's all worthwhile. So what are the kids missing out on? I think just that sense of accomplishment that I spoke of.
So I love it. So on one hand, it's challenging, it's difficult in terms of the work, but the satisfaction and seeing the fruits of your labor is something that is a bit unexplainable, right? It's very powerful. And I love that on one hand, we're talking about this because I really think that the construction industry, at the end of the day, it's hands-on, you're in the field, you're getting dirty. On the other hand, we're here talking about technology and talking about all these futuristic solutions and and how that is going to impact the industry. I think it's one of the biggest challenges, when talking to construction professionals at all. Like they're so not used to this process being, I'd say, efficient, or but also they're so not used to seeing a process that they actually love it's like a labor of love for a lot of the people, and they're and they appreciate it. What would you say? And because also you're talking about the future of potential jobs in the industry, what that could look like. What would you say a kid getting to the industry today? What is this job going to look like when there's more robotics or more technological tools to help him?
Yeah, and I'm maybe going to pick up on something you said earlier, because I will answer that. But one of the things that I found very appealing to Trimble, one of the reasons I love Trimble, is we're not just building, we have a huge software business, but we're also building physical tools to help you build, because you can do so much on a laptop, but you can't build everything. So we have the physical tools that allow you to build those projects, in addition to the software as well. So I think having that combination, and we like to say connecting the field and the office, that's what we do. We have the tools on site that are allowing you to build, to measure what you're doing, and then you're sending that data back to the office, and then you're being more productive, more efficient based on that data. I'm sorry, I've completely forgotten what the question was, because I wanted to get that point across. But yeah,
no,
you wouldn't mind repeating it.
You led it to a great place. The question is given this kind of dichotomy of the traditional what the reputation, and maybe even the notorious reputation of the construction industry being a pretty difficult workplace, and now the opportunities of bringing technological tools, those kids today that aren't interested in entering this space, maybe how are we going to appeal to them, or how do you think their jobs could be even better, in the near future, when technology is actually being adopted, or a more technology-enabled job?
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of think so. I'm young enough or old enough to remember times where the internet wasn't pervasive. I didn't grow up with cell phones, and that's one of the things I think I'm most thankful for in life. Um, but I think that the newer generation who are growing up with this, they're so quick to adopt technology. I think that mentality coming into our industry, like I said, 40% of the industry is going to age out. That generation that's aging out isn't the most advanced in terms of adopting technology. So I think bringing a fresh perspective to the industry in terms of the technologies we leverage, how we connect our technologies, the problems technology can solve. I think that this new generation is going to really help solve that. But I also think, what attracts me to the industry in the future is working alongside robotics, working alongside AI. I think, an important skill for anyone to learn right now is how do you interact with AI? Learning how to do AI prompts and that type of workflows, but bringing that learnings into this industry as well, because it is going to advance very quickly because it has to, and knowing that it is a much more technology enabled industry than it would have been in the past.
Yeah, really interesting. It's leading me on to the next question, which is, we all know that the construction industry is slow to adopt technology. What market barriers have your portfolio companies encountered, and how are you guys able to help them overcome it?
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if it's the biggest barrier, but one that comes to mind is just how long it takes to sell technology into this industry. It is an industry that hasn't adopted technology en masse. It's changing. So there is a barrier to adopt technology, but there's also so much technology being pushed at the general contractors and subcontractors right now that it's hard for them to evaluate all of these. So one that we see is just the length of the sales cycle. And how that can impact startups. Because if it takes, for complex enterprise software, it can take, 6, 9, even 12 months to sell technology into that customer, especially if they're not in a buying cycle. So when you're starting out as a startup, if you have, 12-month runway and it takes 12 months to sell into this industry, that's a really difficult problem to solve. You have to be so focused initially in building your pipeline, finding the customers who are, a true customer for what you're selling, solving the right problem, achieving product market fit, and doing this when you have a very tight timeline to build success versus other industries where it's, selling into consumers, B2C, it could be a day sales cycle. It's much, much shorter. But this industry is a long, complex sales cycle. And it speaks a very focused language as well. And if you're not speaking the language of construction, you're going to be, laughed out of the room. They're going to know in an instant that what you're selling is not for them. So to me, it's one of the complex industries to sell, to build products for. And then on top of that, as a startup, if you have that 12-month run rate, you have to be so efficient in executing very successfully as well.
So I mean, interesting. And one of the biggest, I don't know, it's not falsehoods, but like one of the biggest fallacies that a lot of companies have is like, okay, we're going to go work, we're going to reach out to Trimble, and we're going to get over the entire portfolio companies, right? What does that actually look like? Number one, what does that actually look like? Let me stop it there. Yeah.
So us working with a startup company or portfolio company. Yeah, it's a great question. It's an interesting mix of dynamics where startups move incredibly quick. They're evolving, they're iterating, they're changing their strategy in real time. Whereas we're almost a $4 billion company with 13,000 employees. We're much bigger. We're a corporate entity, so we move. I won't say much slower, but we're more thoughtful in what we do. So it's an interesting dynamic to merge those two perspectives together. So our role in the ventures team is to manage that dichotomy of those different perspectives. So we try to help the startup, understand how to work with Trimble, where are the areas where we can add the most value in a shorter period of time, and helping escalate the time on our end to deliver value for that startup, and managing expectations well. Because in some cases, if we're building or solving a very complex problem, we're not going to do that in a week, in 2 weeks. It is going to take a while. But we, like I said, in terms of run rates, and startups have 12 months to operate in. We know we have to be quick for them as well, and to help them see a path to value. And that's why partnering with Trimble or the other industry providers, it means the startup doesn't have to build everything. They can be really focused on solving their value proposition, or the solution they're setting out to solve, and not solving everything within the industry as well. They can partner with us. We can provide technology for that, and they can stay focused on building the next gen product or whatever problem they're setting out to solve. So it's sort of that give and take relationship.
Interesting. So you guys, I guess one of the benefits that startups can get from you guys is also maybe resources, or to be able to leverage the technology or in-house capabilities that Trimble has.
Yeah. So leveraging our technology, but also our distribution as well. So we have hundreds, maybe even thousands of sellers out there. We have very mature channels as well. We partner with Caterpillar in a shared distribution. So we have a lot of value to offer for startups outside of technology as well, where we can help them get their product out there, help them market, build that awareness to what they're providing, and then help them on the sales side as well. But it's typically, we will start with an integration or leveraging our technology in some capacity to prove that there's a need for what they're doing. And then if they're successful in that, then phase 2 is that go-to-market partnership or further collaboration.
Okay. That's so you mentioned before the length of the sales cycle. What would you say is a typical or average length of a sales cycle for a product?
Well, that's hard to answer. It really varies, and then it varies on, is that company in a point where they're evaluating that technology? Because if they're not, it could be a long sales cycle, or they'll tell you they're interested, but they're maybe not. They just want to keep you close. So it's hard to put a number on it. I think it really varies. But if you're selling enterprise software, it's you're probably talking 3, 6, or even 9 months at times. So I would say it's quite varied.
And so I think that a lot of companies have an impression that it's an easy, once you're talking to the right company, the process is going to run forward. They'll have some sort of an agile adoption, especially when a company has an innovation department or something.
Yeah.
It's always tough to bust that myth. There's still construction companies are, like, the way that I describe it is, I wrote an article a while back and basically said, like, it's construction, or the name of the article was Teaching Giants How to Crawl. And the concept was that these construction companies are giants, they're mammoths, they're amazing at building, but when it comes to technology, it's like they need to learn how to crawl, how to adopt it, how to relate to it, how to assess it, how to analyze it, how to, how to measure it. So it's really something that it's a great point, and it's a huge barrier. How do you guys really are able to help them gain access to a really big, I'd say, distribution channel that Trimble has? But what would you say, other than that, is a way that you guys could help them expedite their sell? Is there a way that you guys are able to help them?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can, we work with the biggest providers out there, the top ENR, 10, 100, the Skanskas, AECOM, Sensel Phelps. We work with all of them. We also work with a 5 to 10 person shop as well. So we can facilitate those introductions. I think, to your point, startups need to be careful with working with the top 1% of the industry, the largest providers out there, because it can be a huge distraction as well, because they have what they need from enterprise software is sometimes not what the rest of the market needs as well. So it can be a huge distraction. So I think for startups, it's really important that you find your ICP early and you stay ultra focused on that. There's a saying in product management where you need to find the quiet 80% of your customers, not the loudest person in the room, because the loudest person in the room is going to take you in a direction that maybe doesn't represent the rest of the market. So doing the work up front to truly understand your customer base and a segment of the market, because you're not going to solve the problem for everyone in the market. So find the people who are willing to pay for your product now or your product in a couple of months from now, and then build up a sales pipeline and sales process to target and to execute for that persona or that segment of the market. And I think the bigger players in the industry are getting better as well. It was in the past they would have had to trial the technology and 20 different projects. They're piloting the technology for 2 years, and they don't do paid engagements to pilot. The problem with that is the startup doesn't last that long. So your big contractor has invested 2 years in trialing this technology, and then they go out of business, and the startup has wasted 2 years, hasn't got paid for that, and then they go out of business as well. So I think it is changing, but I think your top E&R contractor and your startup have to find a middle ground. And in a lot of cases, it's paid pilots, and that is changing as well. So I went in a different direction in your question, but yeah, we can help facilitate those introductions and the learnings as well, because we've gone through this. We build products, we go through these problems every day. So just helping the startup to be focused, to share some of the research, the intelligence that we do as we build our products as well.
Yeah, and I think you really touched on an interesting point of not going to the loudest person in the room, and also a shift in how, we say, the top 1% players, have started relating to technology. It's really interesting because, again, then there's usually a very aggressive approach or a very traditional approach to how to test a product and see if it works. Give it to me for free. I'll play with it. I'll get back to you. But the challenge with the startups is they're as they say, they're lending, like they're gasping for air, and within 2 years, these guys could be dust in the wind. It could be a fairy tale, and so everyone recognizes that they lose, is the big contractors end up investing their time and resources, and I think that that's another big myth for the construction companies. It is not cheap to adopt technology. It's costly, right? And you need to know that you're entering with a budget. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I have, is conveying to the construction companies, like, you need to dedicate resources. You're going to have people test this, your engineering hours. You have so many different things that go into this. Just to pilot a product is not easy, So, and that's also a big myth that I feel is important to bust. So anyways, that I couldn't agree more. And it's really interesting to hear it from you. What would you say is the greatest challenge that the construction tech space is facing today?
Greatest challenge. I don't know if there's a greatest, but there's a few that comes to mind. One that I'm very passionate about is sustainability. I already mentioned 40% of CO2 and greenhouse emissions are coming from directly from construction and embodied carbon, but also from the built environment and embodied carbon. So if our industry doesn't change, we're not going to meet our commitments to reduce CO2. So we have to change how we build. We have to change almost everything about the industry, and that's a huge change for us to make. And this is something that I've been passionate about for years. I remember maybe 5 years ago, I presented on sustainability to some of the largest GCs out there in the US, and it really was, at the time, it was crickets. I could tell they were on their phone. They just weren't interested in this topic. It's a small part of their business. It doesn't make them money. It's a distraction for them. But what I've seen in 6 months after that, a year after that presentation that I did, those same contractors were reaching back out to me and saying, oh, we got to start taking this seriously, because there's money to be made on this, and it's also it's an imperative for them. Their owners are asking about it. Their architects, the end users want this, so they're changing how they build as well. So I think that's a critical problem facing the industry. and one that it is starting to change here in the US. I think the Infrastructure Act and some of the more recent regulations are forcing this. But there's also there's a way to differentiate yourself. There's a way to win more business by focusing on sustainability. And definitely outside of the US, Europe, some of the other geographies are much further along in this. But anyway, I think sustainability is a huge problem we face. And it's one of the most active spaces for VC investing. I think it was the most active category over the last 2 years for dollars flowing into Contech. So that change is coming. The technology is being developed now that's going to help solve this problem in the future. So, we talked about the labor shortage. We talked about a little bit about fragmentation as well and breaking down those data silos. I think speaking the language of construction as well, understanding how accounting works in construction as well. Like, if you look at the across the board here, the largest player to the smallest player, they're typically operating with single-digit profit margins. So they don't have a lot of capital, a lot of profit to lose. So in terms of being very focused on technology that solves the problem, that's going to move the needle for them, is critical as well. And if you're charging, 1% of project value, it doesn't take long for that contractor's margins to be eroded if the technology doesn't work for them, or if it's not focused on solving the most important problems. And then there is a bit of gray accounting that goes on in construction as well, where in a lot of cases people don't want to make a profit because now you pay tax on it and yada yada as well. So they'll reinvest in the business and carry that profit onto the next project as well. So I think if you're coming from a different industry and trying to sell into construction or build in this industry, it's going to be a bit of a wake up call because it operates so differently to other industries. Yeah, so that's what comes to mind in terms of the biggest problems. But yeah, curious to get your perspective as well if there's one we haven't talked about.
No, I loved it. I really loved it, and I think one of the most important things that you said here is that I'd say even on the sustainability element where you started off with is that companies started to see that it is a matter of economics and that there's money to be made, and it's not just that these challenges, like every one of the challenges that we're talking about is something that at the end of the day needs to show how the product needs to be very economical. That's how I feel in terms of a solution. And that's a myth that I also feel a lot of times talking to construction companies. The feeling is that technology is about gadgets. It's having a cooler helmet or something. But at the bottom line, the technology that is making a difference in the industry is technology that is actually saving money and increasing the bottom line of the contractors. And it also brings me to the last point where there are very weird business models, that companies come up with. It's like it's the most I'm like, I couldn't find, a less standardized business model, kind of like business models, throughout the tech ecosystem. Like everyone's coming up with these weird models. And you're like, where'd you come up with this? And also remembering the profit margins are really not big in construction. They're very big projects, but they're not huge. Startups really need to get this point and make sure that their business model makes sense. So I loved it. Couldn't agree more.
And it's why there's so limited adoption as well, because companies don't have a ton of cash or profit to invest in technology as well. So I think it's sort of that double-edged sword where we need to invest in technology, but a lot of cases the customers don't have the capital to invest. But yeah, it's changing and it needs to change as well, so we can adopt more technology and progress as an industry, become more productive.
So we're moving on to another question. What do you think the future of the construction industry is going to look like, and how can technology help shape that future?
I think about this question every single day, and yet I still can't answer it. I don't know if anyone truly knows what the industry is going to look like. I think we all have ideas, but is it going to be reality? Who knows? Because I think in a lot of cases we've been, we almost sound like a broken record at times in terms of, the industry needs to adopt technology, it needs to become more productive, but it's sort of just maintain the direction it's going in. But I keep going back to the labor shortage. I think that's going to be a huge catalyst. Sustainability is causing people to wake up. COVID forced companies to adopt technology, so it's changing at a rate that it never has in the past. So in terms of what it's going to look like, I think it will get more similar to manufacturing in terms of the evolution that they went through, the productivity gains, the standardization that it went through as well in terms of the assembly lines. But when I say that, modular construction has been difficult. 3D printing, all of these advanced modular Gen 2, it's difficult to adopt, again, because of those long sales cycles. And for that type of technology, you're not just selling to your end user, let's say a general contractor, you're also trying to sell through to the owner as well, so that they're educated enough to specify this type of technologies in selecting a general contractor or in the contracts as well. So it's incredibly difficult to sell that technology, and it has to be horizontal or vertically, go span the entire industry to a certain degree. But that's been a very difficult problem to solve. You look at the likes of Contech who've gone out of business trying to solve that problem. So the industry's been scarred by that, but in some ways you can't build just niche technology to solve a big problem like this. You do have to be, to go horizontal across the industry. So I do think these technologies will take off. I'm a huge proponent of modular construction, but it's been around in the past. If you look at post-war in the US and the UK, I think something like 80-90% of houses were built using modular. So the technology isn't new, but unfortunately, after that era, there were so many houses built, that were cookie cutter modular, that there was a negative perspective on the aesthetics of it. So the buyer changed and didn't want that anymore. But I think we're in a situation now where if you look at two dynamics, the labor shortage and the lack of affordable housing, it's going to force a change one way or the other. My generation, our generation, I guess I don't know your age. Well, we can't afford to buy houses in a lot of cases. And that's causing massive, say geopolitical upheaval. And I think this year it's something like 60% of the world, 3 billion people, is going to vote in elections this year. And I think a huge factor in that is going to be affordable housing as well. So I'm going really roundabout here, but I think those trends are going to force the adoption of modular and just technology as a whole. So I think the industry becomes more tech enabled, more modular, and just more efficient in what it does. So I really focus on modular there, but
it's your opinion, it's your thought, but I love it. It's really interesting also to see. I enter this space, like I really kind of fell in love with the construction tech space, because I was working with venture capital, and I kind of entered the space from the tech, from my tech experience, like in venture. And I'm not an engineer. I wasn't an engineer, but I just fell in love with the construction tech space. And one of the things that really got me passionate about it is making housing more affordable and more accessible and more sustainable. These are like and it's not far. It's gonna happen. I think it's gonna happen sometime in the next 10 years. I don't know when it's gonna hit, but the tipping point is coming. When it comes, I think it's gonna, it's gonna rain. But it's interesting. We're the believers here. Someone's gonna watch this podcast in like 10 years and say these guys knew it.
Yeah. Or we're all saying the same thing in 10 years again, which has been the case for a while. But no,
hopefully less.
I'll be positive. It is changing.
Hopefully less. And I think that's the number one commonality about technology, is that when it hits, it's very disruptive. It doesn't happen. It's an exponential growth. So when there's going to be a curve in the market, and the market's going to change its consumer behavior, it's probably going to happen very quickly. And it'll be like a no-brainer. Like, wow, yeah, of course.
Yeah, just follow the money. I think if you look at, BlackRock purchased an asset owner, a couple of weeks ago, and the biggest, a $12 billion acquisition in the space, and that's, BlackRock are the largest asset holder in the world. I think that's going to force a change, and that top-down change where owners are becoming more aware, more educated in how their decisions affect the rest of the industry. The change is going to come.
Really interesting. I'm definitely looking forward to being in the future and saying we knew it. So what advice would you give to other founders who are trying to succeed in the construction tech space?
So not specific to Contech, but one piece of advice that was given to me that has always stuck with me is, the successful startups are not the ones with the best idea who executed the best. The most successful startups are the one who survived, who've been dynamic, been agile, who've changed their direction, their how they've executed. They're the most successful startups. So I think, and maybe tying this back to Contech or more broadly, I think having that vision for the problem you want to solve, and that, there's enough problems in construction, having the vision for the problem you want to solve, but not being married to how you solve that, and being agile, but also being really focused on understanding the problem you're solving, and how your customers want that problem to be solved. So yeah, a little bit roundabout there, but I think being willing to change and to iterate on your business model, on the products you're solving. I think that's the advice I would give.
I loved it. I really think that that the successful startups don't necessarily have the best idea, but they're the ones that have survived. And I think that's a great quote. What would you say is the funniest pitch you ever came across?
We get a lot of them. I don't want to give anyone a hard time here, but there was one that comes to mind where it was, and we filter very quickly, because if it doesn't fit within our investment thesis and what our business units do, we don't take that meeting. So we're very quick to say no, and then sometimes that can frustrate people, but we know what we need, so we filter very quickly. But there was one time where it was an early founder. He was very, very early. I think he had an idea for it was a blockchain-enabled fintech solution for construction. This is 2 years ago when crypto was everything, and NFTs were the biggest thing out there. That did get into construction in a certain degree. So we had an idea for a product or for a company. It wasn't really aligned to what we did, so I passed on it quickly. But then he quickly pivoted to another business where he was working in the oil fields in Texas, where he was building a crypto mining solution that was powered by the runoff gases coming out of these fracking solutions. So I had no idea how it worked. This guy could be the next trillionaire out there. I should look into what he's doing. But yeah, that was just so left the field when he presented that to me.
That was okay. So it's a quick look at that didn't work. Let me, what about this one? What about this product? Pretty much we're done. I think we've this will be the short story at the end. Tune in to our podcast for the latest insights about construction technology. Discover cutting-edge innovations, industry trends, and expert discussions in just one click. Hit the like and subscribe button and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.